Okay, so today we're very authentic. I'm in W.J. Armand and Sons Pie and Mash shop in South London with Alan Hurndall. Alan, thanks very much for agreeing to talk to us and inviting me up here today.
Pleasure. I've not been here for years.
We'll talk about that. And you're the author of the recently published Kid from the Kiosk. You're an award-winning journalist, son of a street bookmaker, brother of legendary to a lot of people gambler Johnny Lights. And you told me that one of your earliest memories as a kid was watching pickpockets work at Epsom racecourse. So fire away. We've got to start there, aren't we?
Yeah, that's true. I've always been as much interested in the theatre of sport as the actual event itself. And the first time I went racing, my mum left my dad and took me and John to Brighton Festival. We thought we didn't know where we were going, to be honest, but she got a cab to Victoria Station, we got the train to Brighton, and we had 3 days in the Grand Hotel. It was meant to be 3 days, but that's another story. And that was the first time I went racing. I was about 6 or 7, and I was wearing those little shorts and sandals, etc. And after the first race, I went round collecting the tickets from the floor, as all kids do. And I got a bit bored with the actual racing itself, so I used to go behind the scenes. And race 2, I was in the paddock next to the owners and the trainers. Little boy, nobody cares. After the third race, I came in with the winning horse, and I plucked up courage to go to the weighing room as well. So, little kid, 6-year-old, nobody questioned me. So I loved behind the scenes theatre. And my brother was sort of 5 years older than me. So when I was 5, he was 10. When I was 10, he was 15. And I went to Epsom one day, I must have been about 10 or 11. And by then, John was already sort of quite established as one of the faces in the ring, if you like. Even though he was 16, 17, he was clerking for 1 or 2 bookmakers and stuff. And he took me aside before the first race and he said, see those fellas over there? And there was 4 very sharp, suited, weathered faces he said, that's the bottle mob. So I said, what's the bottle mob? I was only 10 or 11. He said, pickpockets. He says, they'll only be here for 1 race. He said, hold your money, make sure. And it really stuck with me. So again, I was in Tattersalls, went up the steps, and I was watching them like a hawk, how they operated. And it was actually quite sickening, really, because I could see them lining up their target, and when they're just before the start, when all the punters fly in to try and get a prize, well, they were like, oh my God. And of course, sure enough, they disappeared after 1 race. And they disappeared because, of course, there's no comeback once they're out the track. So that's one of my first memories of horse racing.
Now, you were a pretty tough upbringing. Tell us about where you were brought up and the sort of...
Yeah, I would deny it was tough. I actually felt I was quite privileged, actually. I was brought up in Walworth, which is just up the road from where we are now. Actually, we're in Walworth, but we lived about a quarter of a mile away. In the next street was Michael Caine, he was born there. In the locality, I think Tommy Steele come from Bermondsey. So it's quite, and I wouldn't say it was tough. It was interesting. I was very lucky. Parents didn't have a lot of money, but Dad was a big gambler, and we were skint for some of the time, but had a few quid for some of the time. And when he was up, he was up. And when he was down, he was down. It's like most gamblers, isn't it? So I was quite privileged, I think, really, to come up in that environment I did.
When I say tough, though, you were surrounded by sort of dodgy people?
Well, the Richardson gang had a scrap metal yard just across in Addington Square. I used to sort of deliver papers there. As I say, Mum and Dad had kiosks. there were a couple of train robbers locally. There was, the guys that nicked the World Cup, funny enough, came from Camberwell, so which not a lot of people know. It's in my book. I discovered that they went to a stamp exhibition in Westminster to nick some stamps. Broke in on a Sunday morning when it was closed, and on the street outside they said, "What did you get? What stamps do you get?" He said, "Never mind the stamps." He said, "I've got the World Cup." He said, you stupid so-and-so. He said, "What the hell are we going to do with the World Cup?" Anyway, that's a sort of Keystone Cop episode which I've written about extensively in my book.
They're talking about your book. Let's hold it up a minute, Alan, to show people what we're talking about here. And the kid from the kiosk, that's your dad's kiosk on the front there. Now that angelic, cherubic young lad on the cover, that photograph was taken by the Metropolitan Police, I believe.
Well, that wasn't, the main picture was, yeah, because
oh, I thought the picture of you was.
No, I was only about 8 there. No. Fortunately, I stayed out of trouble. But no, that picture, the main picture was, which goes around the back as well, was of the kiosk, and it was a legitimate business. But Dad used to take 1 or 2 bets from the estate, etc., etc. And I don't know. One day the police knocked on the door and he got done for illegal gaming. And I'm not sure, I think this was shortly after the betting shop legislation, 1961, something like that. Because again, it's something I remember. And basically, I think somebody said he's trading without, he's being a bookmaker without a license because he needed a license. And then when he did apply for a license, it was the front page of the South London Press. And I read about my dad's criminal record, which I didn't know anything about at that point. It's just, I was young and foolish was the headline. And it was about, I was selling the South London Press to customers with my father making the lead story. So that's a bit of a funny incident.
Now, I had the privilege of interviewing your late brother Johnny, just not long before he passed away. He said that he's basically inherited his name lights from your dad. Did the kiosk have lights on it? So is that how it worked?
Well, there's a discussion in the family as to where the phrase lights came from. Obviously, Johnny got it from my dad. He was Johnny Lights. But where did my dad get the nickname Lights from? There's a school of thought saying he used to have a stall in Berwick Street, during the winter he lit it up like a bonfire. Another one said he used to sell batteries at New Cross Dogs to the bookmakers. He was the supplier of their batteries for their stands. And another one, somebody else told me it's because he was light-fingered, or he certainly wasn't light-footed.
Now, I won't ruin it for anybody that's going to read the book, but the story you opened with about your mum taking you to Brighton was because she had to write up with your dad, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It sounds like your mum was one of those traditional South London strong women.
Dad used to sort of go missing for spells, He used to be gambling in the West End and sleeping in Turkish baths and stuff like that. And I think with her running the kiosk, it's supposed to be a joint venture 50-50. I think being amongst the missing, she got the But they were always at each other's throats, but it was a very sort of loving relationship. It's a bit like Till Death Us Do Part, Alf Garner and his, how it was. And then one day she just said, "Right, we're going, I'm leaving him," packed the bags, put us in a cab to Victoria, and as I say, that didn't end well actually, unfortunately, going to Brighton races. After day one, we came out, it was a boiling hot day, we went on the seafront playing crazy golf, and she took us for a Pepsi Cola. But we went into a cafe, and she said, 2 Pepsi Colas, please. And the Gormless, the guy, I thought, he said, Well, they got one. Who's first? And you put it on the counter. And of course, what does a 7-year-old and a 12-year-old do? We scrapped over the only Pepsi Cola, and tug of war with the Pepsi Cola. It went on the floor, smashed, went round and round, Pepsi Cola everywhere. And she just, I think she was at her lowest ebb then. She burst into tears and took us back to the Grand Hotel. She sat in the lounge of the Grand Hotel having a Guinness, and we went upstairs. We were sent to our room, and we carried on the fight. And we scrapped all the way down the grand staircase of the Grand Hotel, and we landed at the bottom, still in bear hugs, and she sort of picked us up by the ear. That's it, we're going home. So in the morning, instead of going to day 2 of the races, we went home.
That's what Star Sports used to have their Christmas parties. I know that staircase very well. So when you were, Dad used to take you to the races?
No, funnily enough, he used to take me to the dogs. New Cross dogs, Thursday nights, Saturday nights. He used to stand with a bunch of totters, you know, rag and bone men basically. And they were a great laugh. But again, I was into the theatre of it. I used to walk around with the dogs on the perimeter. They would be in the inner circle. And after the race, I'd sort of follow them. You know, they used to, the hare would spring, the leading ground would grab the hare, and then I'd follow them into the stables. Into the kennels. I was only that high. And nobody ever pulled me up. But, one day I reported back to my dad that the favourite had just relieved himself on the far side. You know, and behind there was always someone sweeping up their mess. And I said to my dad, wait. The favourite's just had a poo on the far side. So he went, thanks for that, son. Yeah, valuable information. So he's a good man of great humour. But my brother was more of a dog man than my dad. My brother was actually settling for somebody at the age of 15 at New Cross Dogs. And when we went, the first time we went, I think if you were under 11, you got him free. So my dad said, yeah, he's 10 and a half. And then the following night, go to Wimbledon where you had to be 18, he suddenly became 18. So, I mean, those two were like that, really, my dad and my brother. He treated him as his, as his right-hand man.
You never took an interest in the actual betting side of things?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did, but my dad was a born loser at betting. I mean, ridiculous. He used to sometimes bet 3 in a race. You know, seven horse races, bet 3 in. My brother used to say to him, I've worked out the odds here, Dad. You know, even if the biggest price wins, you're only going to just about get your stake money back. Yeah, you're on the recipe to lose. So, that was that really. The other thing is growing up in, having a dad who's a sort of bookie, is you'd come home from school and you knew straight away if he'd won or lost. He was a really bad loser, but brilliant winner. I mean, he'd buy all the pub a drink, literally. Old ladies used to love him when he came. He used to buy them all Guinness. But when you got home, it was like, what do you want? Like, sort of, you knew straight away he'd lost. And he used to have a ledger, cop and blue, and I used to go in and quickly look at the ledger, and if blue was longer than cop, I knew how to get lost. But yeah, those were the days.